Suffering is optional, but letting it go is not something that usually happens automatically. So here's a process that I use that's helping me so much. We're going to have 5 steps here. The first is really honestly assessing where is the source of the suffering. For example, it looked to me like sometimes my husband wasn't as helpful as I wanted. And yet, many times he was. And really, he was the same all the time. What changed was me. You see, I would get too busy, too demanding of myself. And when I felt drained, that stress would come out on him. So it wasn't his fault at all. It was this anxiety I built up in myself by the stress that I was doing. So I had to really get honest about that and really decide, is it worth it to have a appreciative, cherishing relationship and take care of my body? So finding the source of the problem matters a lot. The source wasn't him. Or here's another example. So I had a patient at work and he had cirrhosis. We were doing some treatments for him, and he said, "Well, nobody ever told me that my liver was getting bad." And I thought to myself, well, you kind of know, right, that if you drink a lot, eventually your liver is not going to be happy. Like, he didn't seem to think he had any clue. And if I have the belief that people should take care of themselves, that people should be healthy, that people should be happy, then it looks from that belief like there's something wrong that this guy has cirrhosis. And then I have to find someone to blame. And the first instinct that comes is him in that situation. But just that moment of thinking that something's wrong and that I need to blame somebody, that's painful. Any time that I'm saying this world needs to be optimized, not that it isn't, of course, in a process. We're always in a process. We're always progressing. But how it is right now is the exact place it should be. So there's nothing wrong that he is going through this process with his cirrhosis. Whether or not he ever changes, there's nothing wrong. It's kind of like looking at a puzzle and we've decided that this is missing. In actuality, it's there. We're just covering it up. But you can see how incomplete the experience of looking at this puzzle is if we imagine, a brown spot in front of one of the pieces. How could we not impose that on different situations? We're trying to optimize because, we want to help. But maybe not everyone's supposed to be happy right now. Maybe not everyone's supposed to be healthy right now. That gives people the freedom for their own process. In fact, here's just a really, really simple way that I can look at this. Suppose all of us are in one single humanity consciousness that's learning together. Just like a baby learning to walk. Every time the baby falls, it's in the process of learning to walk. We don't scold the baby. So the way I've started to see it is in this learning process, we're still learning all the parts. We haven't really got it down, otherwise we wouldn't be having any suffering. So we need all the parts. We need the person who, for example, is an alcoholic, never going to change, never going to try to change or try to get more healthy, and is going to die from alcoholism. We need the alcoholic who's going to try to change. Well, actually, not try to change. Just say they're trying to change. We need the one who's going to try to change and then relapse and try to change and then relapse and try to change and then relapse. And we need the one who's going to go further and further. We need all the parts because that's how our collective consciousness is learning. And we haven't fully learned any of those, otherwise, we'd be done doing it. So I'm learning as I watch other people suffering. It teaches me, and what a kind thing of them to do the learning for me so I don't have to be in that position. So I'm finding now that, yeah, that criticism will come up, but then next comes there's no missing puzzle piece. It's all needed. And then I look at their pain and just say, thank you. Thank you for contributing that learning to our collective consciousness. Thank you. And of course, there's an offer if people want some help with their suffering. Obviously, yes. But if they're not ready, if they don't want it, there's no need. I just say, hooray! You're doing what you're supposed to be doing. You're playing your part. And as long as changing doesn't interest you, then clearly that's exactly where you belong. It's too painful for me to look around and impose a missing piece. It's just too painful. So I have to find the source of the suffering, which is always in my own beliefs, oftentimes in what I've done to my body that's created this imbalance that's trying to project it outward. If I'm taking care of myself, if I'm in a completely supported place, loving and cherishing my life and who I am and who I get to interact with, then I have this abundance that when I'm interacting, there's just all this give and all this flex and all this generosity. And it's just, it's so sweet. So the first step in eliminating suffering and returning to joy for me has been honestly assessing the cost of the pain. It's not worth it for me to let myself get stressed out if I'm going to take it out in my relationship. It's not worth it for me to have random anxieties about nothing. But it took noticing what the cost is, noticing what the true cause is. It feels now cruel to look at a person and say, there's a missing puzzle piece in you. You need to fix something. No one needs to be happy for me. I feel the pain of it because I've honestly assessed. And that honest assessment is the first step. Really look, where am I causing this to be a problem? What am I thinking that's causing this to be a problem? What have I done to my body, to my own self-care that's causing this sense of scarcity to be here in this moment, that has designated something as wrong, a mistake, a problem? And then from that, I'm ready to move to the next step.